it is everyone thinks that pelvic PT is Kegels. Or if I even mention the term Kegel, if somebody comes into my office, I kind of get the eye roll of like, oh gosh, Kayla's just going to make them do Kegels today. And I mean, Kegels is, yes, one of the main tools that we will use to strengthen the pelvic floor, but by no means is it the only tool that we're going to be using.
Hey everybody, you're now listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray, and today we're so excited to have Kayla, a board-certified women's health clinical specialist at Apex Physical Therapy and Wellness. Kayla talks with us about digestive health, abdominal pain, and everything pelvic floor related. Kayla gives us healthy habits to improve weak bladders and irritated stomachs. If you ever wondered what great pelvic floor health should look like, this episode is for you. So grab your cup and enjoy! Hello!
Hello! I am Kayla Hager, one of the board-certified pelvic PTs here at Apex.
Love it! How are you?
Not bad. I feel like today is a little bit, is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? You know, day after the 4th of July, all of that fun stuff. Patients are feeling the same, I would say, but otherwise good.
I'm glad that we're not alone, because I definitely, like, this entire day have just been, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, it's such a Monday, but yeah, it's a good scenario because we're almost kind of done with the week now.
I know, tomorrow's already hump day, so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on Cup of Queens. We're so excited to visit with you and learn more about what you do and what the day-to-day looks like. So, kind of, I guess, start with that. Explain to us what your everyday looks like for you and your patients.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys for reaching out and having us on here too. It's definitely, I feel like a underserved area. It's getting better in terms of pelvic health, but lots of people don't know that it exists. And so they'll deal with all these symptoms forever. And so it's nice that we're able to educate and kind of let the word out to people. Kind of my typical day. So I'm a mom of 2. So it's, get kiddos ready for daycare and cup of tea in my hand and off to work I go. I just see typically, I would say 8 to 9 patients a day. We see our patients for 45 minutes to an hour. And I see anything from incontinence leaking to patients with digestive issues, constipation. I also see kiddos for bowel bladder issues too. So if they're having issues with bedwetting, daytime accidents, stool holding, all of that fun stuff. And then, go back home to my family and day is done. Start all over the next day.
That is so cool that you focus on kind of a niche area, if you will, but it really transpires into so many different areas and to so many different people, whether it's kids, men, women. I think for me, that was such a big misunderstanding on my part. Whenever I think of your guys' field of work, I was always thinking women, pelvic floor, you think women. So I'm super excited to hear kind of all the different ins and outs where everyone can benefit from what you guys do. But I'm also curious, how did you decide to get into this field? Like what drew you to wanting to do this?
Yeah. And I would say it's one of the number one questions I get asked from patients is like, how did you choose to do this? And it is kind of an interesting backstory. My undergrad degree was actually in athletic training, which is like on the sidelines of games, your acute injuries, all of that kind of stuff. And then went to get my doctorate in physical therapy. And one of my last clinicals for school was actually there was an opportunity for women's health. And I kind of thought, that sounds interesting. I don't know a lot about it. It would be something completely different for me. I'm going to go for it. And so I did a 8-week clinical and absolutely fell in love with it from day one. And I think what I love so much about it is I feel like I'm really changing people's lives. I know that's kind of drastic to say, but bowel bladder issues, it's something that we take for granted and it's such a natural kind of response in our body. So anytime that patients are struggling with it, now they're not getting out of their homes. They're not going to events or doing activities that they were once doing because they're afraid of having an accident or this and that. So if I can get them back to doing some of those basic tasks, such as even leaving their home to go to a store, like that to me is like day made.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. That's really cool that you're able to make an impact and essentially change somebody's life. So do you have like a specific client success story that comes to mind that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I would say my passion is definitely in like the pregnancy and postpartum realm of things. And so always my favorites are like the moms who are able to now jump on the trampoline or go to Sky Zone with their kiddos, or they're able to get back to running or walking and not having, heaviness or, pain and pelvic floor. And, there again, not to necessarily go, super deep, but intercourse side of things. I've had lots of patients too. They've literally never been able to have intercourse with their partner because they have too much pelvic pain. So there again, another just like game changer of, how we're really turning people's lives around, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you bring up Sky Zone. I have never looked at Sky Zone so differently than when you bring it up there. I'm like, that is probably a nightmare for somebody with, those pelvic floor issues. So I've never thought about it that way.
The jumping on the trampoline, the jumping rope, I feel like now it's just kind of one of those things where, oh, yep, you've had a baby, so you're not going to be able to do those things anymore. And it's like, no, whoever, told you that. So it's basically making people feel like you do not have to live with this stuff. There's things that we can do.
Yeah. Like life isn't over just because you have it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think you touched on such a great point in the beginning where this is such how do you say it? I think there's a lot of unknown to the average person about everything that you guys do and about everything that affects the pelvic floor and how it, like I said, transcends into so many different facets of your life. And so what is kind of those major areas that you see people come to you for? What are those problems where people are like, this is the last straw, I finally need to go see somebody? How do people get to you?
Yeah. So I would say probably the number one thing that we see in the clinic is your incontinence side of things. And incontinence means that you're leaking of either it can be urine, it can be stool side of things. Another super common one is any type of weakness where like prolapse. Prolapse basically means that one of your organs, it can be your bladder, uterus, or rectum, is kind of dropping or falling. So a lot of patients would describe that as like pressure, heaviness in my pelvic floor, or they may notice it when they're going to the bathroom and they're kind of like, something's there that maybe shouldn't be. They can feel that their body just feels different than what it did before. Constipation and digestive issues, man. And even with COVID, that's been huge. And kind of a huge after effect of COVID that we're noticing too is a lot of people having digestive issues. And I think we can attest that, our food and what we're eating and all of that kind of stuff definitely has changed over the years. So we've noticed a huge uptake of patients coming in with lots of digestive things. And that could be anything ranging from IBS to someone who's maybe had an abdominal surgery 10 years ago, and now they're left with this abdominal pain that no one can seem to figure out. So those are kind of some main, and like I said, just pelvic pain could be at rest, could be with activity, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So basically anything from kind of your abdomen to your pelvis is pretty much all things that we're treating.
Yeah. And there's a lot going on in that small area. Like, I feel like,
and they all correlate together. So if one's not working, the other tends to follow suit with it too.
Okay. Right. I have to ask this because, are you a TikTok watcher? Do you watch TikTok at all?
I am not. I haven't dove into that, but I've been told I need to.
It's really great. But there is this TikTok. I shouldn't totally say it's a trend because I don't think that's correct, but it's kind of a trend where a lot of girls are saying like, all hot girls have digestion problems. And like, have you seen it?
Yes.
It's like kind of this running joke.
Or like stomach issues.
That stomach issues that like cute girls have stomach issues. And it's a joke, obviously. They're not saying those are correlating factors, but I think what they are saying is a lot of people have digestion and stomach issues, and especially women. I don't know if I think guys, or at least the guys in my life, are maybe a little bit less willing to share, but I know so many of my friends who like constipation or like lactose intolerant, or their stomach doesn't do well with this. I think that is such a constant issue for women. So I'd love to hear kind of what you've taken away with constipation, digestion, just that kind of area.
Yeah. And I feel like it's one of those things that's easy for people to kind of write off or blame on other things too. But our gut is kind of considered to be our second brain. So a lot of times, there may not necessarily be something physically going on with your, organs and that type of stuff that maybe they're able to find on imaging or through a colonoscopy or this and that. But a lot of times we're finding stress, anxiety, all of that is a major role in affecting people's gut health. It can slow down your motility, and specifically kind of what we're working on as physical therapists, tissues surrounding your organs, or what we call like viscera or your fascia. So oftentimes I tell patients to kind of think of it like the leotard of our body. It's what holds us together. Or kind of think of it like saran wrap. Well, if saran wrap gets really tight around something, now whatever it's covering can't move and function like it's supposed to. So essentially, we're going in to see where are those restrictions? Can we get that moving? And that system is so reliant on different stressors, anxiety. You and I could probably literally make ourselves kind of sick or nauseous in a way just by thinking about things, right? And so a lot of times patients are amazed too of like, God, I've been dealing with this for years. All these doctors, everything's checking out normal. And here it's like, okay, what's been going on in your life? Have you had certain, stressful situations in this and that? And we're able to help them through that way too. So lots of different, it's multi-focus for sure.
I would never think that. I would never correlate those like stress and digestion together. I would never think that. That is crazy.
And like your mind is such a powerful thing too, that even if you're not sick or something's not truly wrong, like you kind of make yourself think like that. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
So interesting. Okay. So kind of just talking about at the beginning when we talked about different success stories that you've seen with clients, really focusing on empowering women and men. What are, certain situations that you feel you're able to make women feel more confident, or I guess empower women to feel more confident?
Yeah. So as we talk about a lot of these things, and we already alluded to this too, it's kind of a taboo topic, right? And a lot of people are super embarrassed to talk about it with even family members, even their husband, all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like just making them feel like they are not the only ones dealing with this issue. And a lot of times patients aren't even telling their primary care providers. They're not even telling their doctors that they're having issues with leaking or constipation or pelvic pain, because like I said, especially as Midwesterners too, it's kind of the, we want to be those strong North Dakotans that don't have a problem with this or that, or don't want to let people know our weaknesses more so. So my first thing is just making patients, women, men feel comfortable about the situation. And kind of, I'm a good listener, I would say, as far as the first visit of, I want them to feel like they're being listened to and their voices are being heard. And a lot of times you can just see their guard literally just come down right off of the bat of like, wow, someone actually took the time. Could be 10 minutes, could be 20 minutes, however much you need to kind of tell your story. And already then I can already notice a confidence booster. The other thing is just education, like simply educating patients about their body. Like, what is their pelvic floor? To be honest with you, majority of people don't have a clue that that's even a muscle. They're just like, yeah, it's kind of this just big dark hole down there. I have no idea what goes on, And so even just bringing out a model, like this is what, it is. This is the function of it. There again, they kind of get that like aha moment of like, okay, this makes complete sense as to what's going on in my body. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably have that. I have no idea that that's a thing.
Yep.
So, besides, I think when people think pelvic floor, they do think women. I think I had mentioned that earlier. And, for men, obviously digestion, constipation, but what are some other areas that you can really help empower men on the flip side?
So same issues that women have, men can have the same thing. And we're kind of trying to turn away from when pelvic health or women's health first came out, right? It was kind of titled women's health side of things. Now we're trying to move that towards everything being pelvic health, just to be holistic.
Yeah.
Prostatectomy, we'll see a lot of them for that. So we kind of have what we'll call like a prehab before they would go into surgery. We kind of assess and make sure that they're going into that surgery super, super strong, so that just helps speed up their recovery process afterwards. And there again, they deal with, gut issues the same amount as us. I will 100% agree with you. They're a little bit more apt, and especially like leaking side of things too, to not really mention things. But the credit that I will give guys is if they start having those symptoms, they are the ones going in to get it figured out right away. Whereas I feel like as females, we're busy, we have kids to take care of, we got this and this and this to do. We put ourselves in the back seat. Whereas men kind of notice like, okay, this is odd. I don't like this. And they'll kind of go in to get it taken care of, which is good. So we need to learn a couple things from them maybe too, a little bit.
That is an interesting comparison.
Especially for this, because it is so personal and so kind of like, I don't know, touchy. I'm surprised that men are more proactive, but it's true. I mean, women are busy and, primary caretakers and, so, okay. What about any misconceptions? I mean, like you mentioned, I think earlier on, there's so many misconceptions within the field. So, what are some of those that you can expand on?
Yeah. So I feel like the biggest one we get is everyone thinks that pelvic PT is Kegels. Or if I even mention the term Kegel, if somebody comes into my office, I kind of get the eye roll of like, oh gosh, Kayla's just going to make them do Kegels today. And I mean, Kegels is, yes, one of the main tools that we will use to strengthen the pelvic floor, but by no means is the only tool that we're going to be using. But the thing about the Kegels is that I feel like we're all told we should do them, right? But we're never told, how do I know if I'm doing it right? How many do I do? How long do I hold for? All of those type of things. I would say, honestly, probably 7 out of the 10 patients that I see are doing them wrong when they first come into my office. Because like I said, it's one of those things where it's like, well, we're all told or have read that we should be doing it, but we're never really given any guidance or have any idea to know that we're doing it correctly. So we have some kind of cool tools in our office and stuff too, for us to be able to give people some visual feedback to make sure that they're doing those correctly. One is what we like to call a surface EMG or a biofeedback machine. And basically it's a couple stickers that we'll put on a patient's bottom. We'll plug them into a computer screen and it's going to show us what their pelvic tone is. Do they have high tone? Do they have low tone? And then we'll have them try some exercises and they're able to visually see on the screen those muscles working and functioning. Another cool tool that we got literally just in this past month is we've all been trained on rehabilitative ultrasound. So very similar to like an ultrasound that you would go in when you're pregnant to see a fetus. But this allows us to also look at pelvic floor, bladder. We can assess diastasis, all of that good stuff. So we have some pretty cool tools that we can use to be able to kind of get patients there again, kind of buy into something just beyond the Kegel and things as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
That is
the technology.
Wild.
I know, right? It's come a long way.
Yeah.
You mentioned like, I'm going to say it wrong, not resistance, but strength. You can measure the strength of someone's pelvic floor. So is that, I'm just curious because I know you mentioned that people come to you even who aren't pregnant. I think everyone always thinks that area weakens after you have a baby, but can it ever weaken like without that whole trauma? Are there other things that happen in life that can cause, if you will, setbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. So another one that surprises people is actually constipation can weaken the pelvic floor. And the primary driver of that is a lot of patients who have constipation or bowel issues are having to strain to have the bowel movement. And instead of our pelvic floor being supportive or kind of holding things up and in, when you're straining, you're essentially pushing that pelvic floor down and out. And over time, that can weaken pelvic floor. And for some of my patients, it could maybe take a week or two of being constipated and straining, and they will already start to notice weakness. For other patients, man, they've had issues since they've been 5 years old, and now they're maybe 45 and are just starting to notice some of those things. Any type of like surgery, abdominal, gynecological, surgery obviously can kind of weaken pelvic floor, this and that. We will see it a lot in patients maybe doing more like excessive exercising, not to count out like our CrossFitters and this and that, and all of that is good. It's just if they're doing things improperly, if they're lifting improperly, if they're not using correct breathing mechanics, all of that kind of stuff, the pelvic floor takes on all of that strain. So
geez,
yeah,
life and the human body are complicated.
But I think it's really good to mention, because I think there's a lot of people probably out there. I can only imagine that there are people who don't think that they have a problem because they're like, well, I haven't had a kid. Like, why would something, this is just how I'm supposed to be. There's nothing traumatic that has happened to me. So, but when you think of it, like, I would have never thought that those little kind of daily happenings for some people, whether it's CrossFit or constipation, whatever it might be, can add up to be big problems for you.
Yeah, totally. So are there any specific, like even small or minor changes that people can make in their everyday life that will help them improve their well-being or their health, or, just kind of overall?
Yeah. So when it comes to things a little bit more pelvic floor specific, one of the things that we look at is something as simple as just like bladder irritants. So what we're eating and drinking. Of course, a lot of those things are things that we love, our caffeine, our, chocolate, our alcohol, our spicy foods, all of that kind of stuff. And it's not to say that every one of those it can be irritating to your bladder or bowel side of things, but it's something really simple. If patients are noticing, like, I'm in the bathroom all the time. Like, I have my morning cup of coffee and now I'm running to the bathroom 5 times. Okay, maybe coffee or that caffeine is an irritant. And maybe if you would decrease it a little bit, or even go a day or two without, see if your symptoms are better. That's kind of a really simple way to see if, like I said, that could be something for you. When it comes to digestive stuff, honestly, just increasing your fiber. Normal fiber intake for us is 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day. To be honest with you, I would say well over half of us are not reaching that by any means. I myself don't necessarily classify myself as having, digestive or bowel issues, but even when I kept track of it for a day, was not even close to reaching that mark. So something is just increasing your fruits and veggies can kind of help your motility and get things moving. Water intake is another huge one. They suggest half of your body weight in ounces of water per day, which there again, the first thing that we hear from patients is, well, if I'm going to be drinking all this water, I'm going to be going to the bathroom all the time, right? Exactly. And initially patients may feel this way, but honestly, I'll have patients track or kind of keep like a bladder diary. And maybe for the first week or two, they honestly may go to the bathroom one to 2 times more in their day than they did before, which honestly isn't terrible. But as we kind of retrain that bladder and get it used to that volume of intake, honestly, your bladder gets used to it over time. But both a digestive and from a pelvic health standpoint, water is kind of what helps to fuel our body and keeps everything flushed out. So that's another just relatively simple thing. Healthier living, there again, being a PT, any type of movement, okay? Our bodies are meant to move. So something as simple as going for a walk, or even honestly, just standing up, sitting back down from your chair, but doing that 10 times in a row. If you're going to get up to get a glass of water, maybe you take an extra trip around your house. The good old favorites of, parking farther away in the parking lot, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, all of those good things are just good general health tips and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's so interesting, the fiber comment, because I think about this a lot, because especially I think of when we're just coming off a long weekend where I can guarantee almost everybody listening had the chips, the dips, the cookies, the bars, like all the holiday
good
things that are brought to you. And I'm so curious as to what you kind of recommend for a healthy intake of fiber. Like, what are some good things that would be easy to implement into your life?
Yeah, so I would say any of your greens, so like your leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflowers, all of that good stuff. Fruits are also a great helper to increase your fiber. So I feel like it's melon season. Basically, anything that you can, you somewhat enjoy, I would say, try that. Or oftentimes I'll give patients a goal of like, all right, every day this week, I want you to introduce a new fruit or vegetable that you haven't tried before, and also kind of see if that helps with things and stuff too. And also kind of keeps things interesting, because I feel like it's so easy for us to get in a rut, right? Like, okay, I like my carrots and celery with hummus, and that's just what my life is. And I've even noticed for myself too, that there's lots of vegetables. I just didn't even know like how to cook them, or like what to, like spaghetti squash, for example. I feel like I always told myself, oh, this is just going to take forever to cook and whatever, and so hard. And now I can make 50 different dishes with it. So you got to just be open and willing to try new things. Another tip that I had gotten off of, I think it was someone on Instagram actually, was if you are a like smoothie person in the morning, an easy way to get a vegetable in is putting cauliflower rice, like frozen cauliflower rice, in your smoothie as a way to add a vegetable. And honestly, A, cauliflower has no taste to it. And B, honestly, it makes it kind of creamy. So I feel like spinach is always one that we hear for like, oh, something to add into your smoothie. So that would be my my one tip would be maybe try some cauliflower rice.
Dang.
That is a good idea.
That is a really good idea. Sorry, you got to start your celery juice again.
I tried celery juicing for a while, and I don't know, it wasn't for me, but
no, I know all the fads of different things and stuff too, right? So you got to be mindful of some of that too. It's easy to get down a rabbit hole with a lot of those type of things.
And I think it's great that like to that answer you just answered is fruits and vegetables. Like it's not that hard, but I'm always just thinking that it's going to be some crazy, like in my head, I don't know why I always go to like fiber one bars. Like when I think fiber, that's
well, the commercials, they're good with their marketing and advertising, honestly, to make you think like, exactly. Because I would honestly say the same thing. When you said that, I was like, yep, when I first started diving into the nutrition side of things a little bit more, that's what I thought of too. Like, oh, I got to just have my fiber one bar and I'm going to be good to go.
Yeah, that's loaded with sugar and
and all sorts of.
Okay, also real quick, Activia, is that like fiber too or not?
Yes, they more so go on the basis of, and I was actually going to mention this too, probiotic is another huge thing that I always tell patients. If you have not tried that before, that can be great. Just getting some of those good gut bacterias into your gut. I always tell patients, because of course there's a zillion of them on the market, and I'm not saying to do one versus the other. I usually just try to tell patients, look for something that's refrigerated. So anytime that a probiotic is refrigerated, that's just telling you that there's more live, those good bacterias in there. So that's usually my one suggestion to try. But that can be, like I said, a very simple, huge game changer. I think we're always told, oh, I've been on an antibiotic, like I should do a probiotic. And there again, I feel like society tells us usually it comes in like a 30-day or like a month supply. So patients think, all right, I'm going to take my probiotic for that month. And man, yeah, actually I'm maybe feeling a little bit better. And then they just quit it because there again, they went through their 30 pack and they think they're good to go. But there again, that's something that we should be taking honestly all the time, just to help keep us on track with things so that we're not roller coaster up and down all the time.
How do you feel about like kombucha for probiotic? Do you feel like does that do anything?
Yeah, there have been some good studies, honestly. If you can get past the taste, I feel like that's usually the one with that one that's a little bit harder for patients to jump on the bandwagon with. It is they have to kind of get over that little bit of a vinegary, kind of sour type taste. But yeah, it's shown to be really good as far as another way if people don't want to supplement with, if they don't like taking things in like a capsule type form. The kombucha is a great kind of, like I said, alternative to that too. But no, studies have shown that that's a really good way to help with gut health as well.
Okay,
I'm just try that again.
So maybe try to grab for that versus our, pops and all of that type of stuff.
Yes, they have them at Crisp and Green, and I love them. The ones at Crisp and Green are really good. Okay, I'm sorry to get stuck on this topic, but I'm just so curious because I have one more thing. This is literally just happened to me this last week, and my parents' dog was constipated, and he's super old, and they were really worried about him. It was so sweet. They were super stressed, and so they called the vet. We're at the lake. They called the vet, and the vet was like, "Okay, can you get some pumpkin puree for the dog?" And I was like, pumpkin puree. So of course my mom had a friend bring pumpkin puree for the dog to eat. And I was like, is that a thing? I've never heard this for digestion.
So it's shocking that you say that too. I literally had a coworker last week. Maybe this is the same person. Who knows? I'm just kidding. I think their dog was sick, might have gotten into something that they weren't supposed to or something like that. And they had heard the same thing, that they were supposed to feed him pumpkin puree. So I don't know. I will be honest, I don't know a ton of my research on pumpkin puree specifically, but I feel like it's just one of those things where it's just a little bit kind of like when you think of your brand diet, like your bananas, your rice, and that type of stuff, where it's like, it's not super irritating to the gut, but I don't necessarily know the chemical stuff behind it as far as if it can help or if it has a human.
I don't know. I was like, is this a dog specific thing?
Did it work for him?
Right.
Yeah, it did. It totally works for him. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard before. So while we were on the topic, I had
we all have something to research then tonight. Look into a little bit more.
I love it. Okay. So we have a fun game, and it's called Treat Yourself. And so we'll give you a few different scenarios. And then if you can just give us your first recommendation on how you would treat these.
Yeah.
So the first one being a weak bladder.
So I would say strengthening. So I know kind of our infamous Kegel that we talked about before, but usually we'll throw in core hip strengthening too. So like I talked about, everything kind of from waist to pelvic floor all works together. So we usually focus on all of those areas, not just one. Sorry, I probably didn't keep that quick, did I?
That was
that's great.
Okay. Don't worry.
I was like, it's hard to sum it up in one word. It's very hard.
That's okay. Okay. We have talked about this quite a bit, but I'd love to hear kind of your top tier. This is like your number one recommendation right from the start: constipation.
So major one here, I would say, is your toileting posture. So how you're sitting on the toilet. So when we talked about wanting to avoid that straining, right? Because we want to reduce our chance from weakening the pelvic floor over time. So I'm sure you've heard of the squatty potty. There again, I'm not putting a plug in for them or anything there either, because honestly, you don't need to go out and buy one. If you even have a small stool, or even if your garbage can, lay it on the side, get your feet up on something, and so that your knees are a little bit higher than your hips. That relaxes everything in pelvic floor to make it easier to go. And my other one would be water intake. That's the biggest thing. And there again, I just have patients keep track of how much are you drinking throughout the day. Because I feel like most are like, you know what, I feel like I'm pretty good about my water intake. And once I have them keep track, it's like, oh yeah, I may be only having 4 glasses of water. And it's like, realistically, so here's literally what's sitting at my desk. My gallon jug here.
Dang.
So it's a lot more than patients think. And when they see my jug too, they're like, yeah, I'm not taking that in. I'm definitely not having that in a day.
Okay, so what about prenatal, postnatal fitness? Did I read that? Yeah, and rehab.
Yeah, so here I would say e-gym, and we have not touched on this. So I am actually at our South Fargo location, which just opened at the beginning of April here. And a cool piece of equipment that we added on is our e-gym, or electric electronic gym. And it's state of the art. It's the only one, honestly, in this tri-state area. The closest would be Colorado or Omaha that you would have access to this equipment. And basically, it is a way to kind of individualize your exercise program. Because I feel like the number one thing that we get from postpartum moms is, where do I begin? And, what do I do type thing. So what's cool about this equipment, and myself being postpartum, I just had a baby in March, is it's basically a scan of a wristband to the whatever piece of machine that you're going to use. You sit down and it's basically customized to you. So the machine will automatically adjust to your height, where we want things at, to make sure that you're doing the exercise properly. Because like I talked about before with kind of our CrossFit, and if you're lifting heavy weights and things like that, is what is your form and what is your body able to tolerate? So it knows what your max strength is and kind of adjusts your program based on that. The nice thing is the next time that you come in to use that piece of equipment, there again, you scan in, it automatically adjusts to make you progress through, so that it's constantly, like I said, so you can reach those strength gains and all of that good stuff. Another cool tool that we have here is what's called a Sika machine, or a Sika scan. And basically, non-invasive, you literally are just going to stand on this piece of equipment, and it's going to tell us everything from your BMI to what your water weight is, your skeletal mass, your muscle mass. And there again, that eGym uses that information to specifically put a program together for you. So I had to kind of put a plug in there because it's really cool. I can't even describe it. It's kind of one of those things where you got to come in and see it for yourself type thing. But it's been great on my postpartum recovery too. I feel like I'm finally seeing some of those strength gains and just feeling like I'm getting that body back after pregnancy.
That's so cool.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow. That is wild. I'm like, I want to know this information.
I know, right? Yeah.
Right.
I just think it's fascinating to learn about.
And literally each piece of equipment has a computer screen on it. And it's kind of, think about it like it's going to gamify your workout. You literally are going to follow. It kind of looks like a Pac-Man machine. Like you want to collect all your coins to be able to get to the ending point, is kind of how I would describe it. But yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's motivating too, to,
it is
going.
Yeah. Have a visual to it a little bit.
And a lot of times, moms, we don't want to think about we just kind of want to go in and have something ready to go for us. Half of it is just the thought process of, what do I want to do today? And that takes that guesswork out of it. You literally just show up. It's a 22-minute circuit. So that's the other thing, being a busy mom. I want in and out. I don't want necessarily something that I'm going to have to just spend an hour doing. So it'll give you a total body workout in about 22 minutes, which is great.
That is awesome.
Sweet.
All right. Next one, abdomen pain and discomfort.
So here I would say visceral therapy. So when I was kind of talking before about like that viscera, that fascia that covers our organs. So I have, and quite a few of us have, some specialized training in what's called visceral manipulation. It's kind of a scary term, but basically I like to call it our tummy work. This is where I'm going in and kind of assessing, where do patients have different abdominal restrictions around certain organs that could be causing them pain, or we'll kind of get into digestive issues and stuff here too. But that's a great tool that we can use to kind of help improve some of those symptoms. Another major one is proper breathing. Honestly, a lot of, anytime that we have pain throughout our body, it could be abdominal pain, it could be pelvic pain. And main thing that we'll use is, like I said, just what are your breathing mechanics? And that kind of helps to calm our nervous system down, kind of bring us out of this like fight or flight response back into kind of more of a calmer zone.
Oh gosh, I feel like breathing and like yoga, anything in that realm, it seems like it comes up in a lot of our conversations to some degree, and it's so important. It's just one that you're like, but it's breathing. Like I know. It's so easy to write off, I feel like, but that's very interesting to hear that that's a big component.
Yeah. Or even if you're running, you're breathing the right way.
Yeah.
And all that.
Right. Well, we live in a society too, where it's just like, we're super fast paced, right? And we want everything like instantaneous. And so I feel like our brains are kind of just so wired and engaged all the time because we have so much stimulus coming at us.
Yeah.
So literally even taking a minute out of your day to just like, I'm closing my eyes, I'm taking a couple deep breaths. Even if we tried it right now, honestly, you'd already just feel like a sense of calm. We're just down regulating things a little bit.
I need to start doing that.
I know. Morning and night. I do too. Yeah.
Right. For myself.
Write it in your day plan for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, last one is digestive issues.
Yeah, so this kind of goes along with the abdominal pain side of things. For this one, we definitely look at the dietary component, like I said, that water, food intake side of things. But another huge one is, like I said, this visceral manipulation is a lot of times what we'll use for patients. Just basically getting that movement and mobility back allows your organs to basically function like they're supposed to.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just incredible, all the things that you've been able to do to help women and help, honestly, everybody, men, women, kids, whoever walks through your doors. But I think it's not only inspiring what you do, but I think it would be very fun to hear what is inspiring to you. So being that this is Cup of Queens, we always like to ask, what does a queen mean to you?
So I kind of visualize queen as being a lady boss who uses her passion and her gifts to help people. So it's kind of your person who is a hustler, a goal-driven person, and stays true to herself, stays genuine. So, which I hope that's what I ensue to everyone else too. But
yes,
well, that was so
kind of what I live by.
Yeah. I'm feeling all of those vibes from you. I'm certain you do.
So good. Well, okay. This was so good, so fun. And I know everyone's going to want to learn more and connect with you and, hopefully even set up an appointment. So plug away, give us all the information, how people can connect and find you guys.
Yeah. So honestly, probably the easiest would be through our website, especially now with us having 2 locations. So our other location is in West Fargo, off of the Veterans exit. If you know kind of where Maxwell's and that is, that's where our West Fargo location is at. Me in South Fargo here, I'm just off of that 52nd Avenue exit. So if you know where Sweet Shots and Kingpins is, I'm just on the other side of the interstate, basically. But at our website would have all of our phone numbers. So basically that is apexptwellness.com. Otherwise, honestly, there again, it's kind of a taboo topic. Some patients might be embarrassed to even, call our front desk to set up an appointment, this and that. And a lot of people might just have other questions or wondering if, PT would benefit them. And feel free to use my email. That is Kayla. So Kayla at apexptwellness.com.
Perfect. Well, we'll link everything. So
yes.
We'll link that.
Perfect.
And we can leave the phone numbers and the addresses for both clinics. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
It's
thank
all great
you.
things. We loved hearing all about it.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.